Hi, I'm Doug Miller. Before we begin, I'd like to make a few announcements. First of all, I want you to know that you should be receiving a link for an on-demand copy of today's webinar within the next 24 hours. You'll be able to view the webinar on Zoom for the next week. Second, you should have received a handout for today's presentation in an email from the college. If you did not receive that handout today, please email events.assistant@occ.edu right now and we'll send you one. Again, the email address is events.assistant@occ.edu. Also, during the webinar, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions using the Q&A function. I'll try to save some time at the end of my presentation to answer as many questions as I can. And finally, if you've been blessed by Ozark Christian College or any of these resources, please consider a financial partnership with the college. You can do that simply by visiting occ.edu/donate. At this time, I'm going to turn off my video feed and direct your attention to the slideshow. Also warn you that I am trying to get a cold and I may be clearing my throat. I want to apologize in advance for that if I get choked up, so I hope you understand. I entitled this webinar, 19 Reasons to Make a Will in 2019. Almost every week, I talk to someone who says, I know, I need to write a will, but just haven't done it. There seem to be a lot of reasons for not making a will. You're too busy, or it sounds too complicated or expensive. Maybe it's too depressing to think about dying. Maybe you just want to avoid lawyers in general. So what I want to do today is give you 19 reasons why you should make a will. I hope to prompt you to complete this important task this year. Making a will in 2019 might be the easiest resolution for you to keep. So let's begin. The first reason you should make a will is because you have stuff. What do I mean by stuff? I'm talking about your possessions. You have personal possessions such as furniture, jewelry, tools, perhaps even antiques. You may have vehicles such as cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, or RVs. You probably have bank accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts, certificates of deposit at a bank. You also may have investments like stock, retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks, or life insurance. You may own a home or other real estate such as a farm, business property, or rentals. The legal word for all this kind of stuff is your estate. So when I'm talking about planning your estate, I'm talking about planning what happens to all this property when you die. So the very first reason you should make a will is because you have stuff. You have an estate. You may say, I don't have much stuff, but still, it's your estate. You never know how much stuff you'll have at the time of your death. You do have possessions, and you should direct who will receive it. When you die, it tells us, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. We know that God is the creator and therefore he owns everything. He's the owner and we're merely in possession of his property. You possess property that you do not own. You possess God's property. There's a big difference between owning property and possessing property. Think about renting a car. A rental company allows you to possess their car for a few days, but if anything happens to it, you're responsible to the owner. If you damage it, you'll have to pay the rental company that owns it. If you treat it like it's your own, you can get in trouble with the owner. Likewise, it's important for us to remember that we are stewards of the master's property. We're in possession of his property, not ours. That's why I'll use the phrase possessions instead of property that you own. So the principle is important for us to remember at the beginning. God owns everything. The next reason, number 3, we need to remember people are more important than possessions. In Luke chapter 15, we find three parables. First, the parable of the lost sheep, where the shepherd leaves the 99 sheep to go look for the one that strayed away. Second, the parable of the lost coin, where a woman turns her house upside down until she finds it. And finally, the parable of the lost son, or the prodigal son who left home. His father waits for his lost son to return and then runs out to meet him. In each parable, something valuable was lost, and the owner went to great lengths to find it. These aren't parables simply about watching sheep, coin collecting, or even parenting. Rather, they reveal God's heart for those who are lost. In the same way, we should be motivated by concern for people more than for our possessions. When we talk about planning our estate, we're not just distributing our possessions. Rather, we're taking care of people. Which leads us to our next reason. Number 4, our primary motivation should be love. 1 Corinthians tells us that everything we do must be motivated by love. 1 Corinthians 13:3, if I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. In other words, if you sacrificed all of your possessions and even your very life, but are not motivated by love, you do not accomplish anything. We provide for our family and friends out of love. We give to our church out of love for our fellow believers and others in our community. We support missionaries because we love people who have not heard the gospel around the world. I give to Ozark Christian College because I love its strategy of training men and women to tell other people the good news about Jesus. We need to make disciples who can make disciples. We need to be motivated by love. The 5th reason, we must provide for our dependents. 1 Timothy 5:8 tells us, if anyone does not provide for his relatives, especially for his immediate family, he's denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. God expects us to take care of those who are dependent upon us. So the question is, who are your dependents? Certainly your spouse and your minor children are dependent upon you. But what about your adult children? Are they dependent on you financially? Possibly, but probably not. However, what about your church or missions or ministries that you support on a regular basis? Do they depend on your financial support? Would they miss your giving if you were gone? Yes, they would. When you're gone, the ministries you support will have to find someone else to make up for your loss in giving. As a result, you could consider them as a dependent. I know some people have decided to give their church the same share as they would give an extra child. If they had 4 children, they would add their church and give each one of them 1/5. Me, that's providing for your dependents. Reason number 6, you're accountable to the owner for how you use his property. In the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25, a master asked 3 servants to take care of his property while he was gone. When the master returned, he found that 2 of them put the property to work and created an increase for the master. The master told them, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. However, we know the 3rd servant did not use the master's property wisely, but buried it. He was chastised for not using it for the master's benefit. We may not want to admit it, but we will give an account to the owner someday. For that reason, we should pray and ask God for wisdom before we decide what to do with his property when we die. Does the owner care about what we do with his property? I believe he does. As stewards of God's property, we should use it for his benefit. As stewards, we know we're responsible for how we use God's property during our lifetime. We should also be responsible for his property when our life on earth is over. Leads us to the 7th reason, you need to make a will. Someday you will die. We may not want to think about it, but we do have a limited lifespan. I believe several people delay planning their estate because they don't want to think about dying. That doesn't change the fact that you will die someday. Unless the Lord returns first, you will die and leave your possessions and your loved ones behind. We need to confront our own mortality. We may be called home sooner than you think. Will we be found ready? I understand dying is not pleasant to think about. However, it's inevitable, and you need to plan accordingly. Death waits for no one. Failing to plan can create a hardship for your loved ones. So you need to make a will because you have stuff and because you will die. Reason number 8 may surprise you. You already have an estate plan. When I give a presentation, I often ask, is there anyone who has not made a will? Invariably, a few embarrassed hands are raised. I tell them, you do in fact have an estate plan. If you've not made a will, your state has made a plan for you. Now, does that make you feel any better? You think the state's plan for your possessions would match your plan for your possessions? How much money do you think the state plan gives to your church or other ministries you care about? If you said none, you are correct. So you have an opportunity and a responsibility to direct the distribution of property God has entrusted to you. If you want to be a godly steward, you can't rely on the state's plan for your possessions. You must make a will, a trust, or make a beneficiary designation. So the question is, did you make your will, or did you allow the state to make your plan? Doing nothing means you're allowing the state to determine what happens to your property. As a responsible steward, you should direct the distribution of your possessions after you're gone. Allowing your state to decide is not good biblical stewardship. The 9th reason to make a will is for that very reason. You get to decide who receives your possessions. As I said, it's both an opportunity and a responsibility. In making your plan of distribution, you can be as specific or general as you want. Some people want to make a list of specific property that they want to go to certain people. You can designate a specific dollar amount, such as $10,000 to a certain missionary, or a percentage, like 10% of my estate to my church. You can make gifts that are specific and then leave the remainder to someone else. You can also make a gift contingent or conditional. For example, you could say, I leave my vehicle to my mother if she survives me. Obviously, vehicle goes to mother only if she's living when you die. Other people are content with a general gift that just says everything to be divided among my 3 children equally, and they don't specify. The important thing is that you decide who receives your possessions. Most people leave something for their family members and friends. Several people leave a gift to a charity or ministry that they support. A will is an excellent opportunity to make a gift to a church or ministry. You have a lot of flexibility in determining who gets what and how much. You can leave your possessions to anyone you want with only a few exceptions. You can't legally omit your spouse or your minor children because they're your dependents. Otherwise, you can leave them to whomever you want. So you have flexibility to decide who receives your possessions. Number 10, in your will, you can select your executor. Many states now use the term personal representative instead of executor or executrix. This is the person you put in charge of your estate when you die. The executor pays your final bills and then distributes what's left to your beneficiaries. Who should you appoint as your executor? Well, you could appoint one of your children, a relative, a trusted friend. Some banks have trust departments that are willing to serve as the executor of estates. Trust departments do charge a fee for their services, but they have an experienced staff and provide professional management. Regardless of who you select, the important thing is you want to select an executor who will carry out your wishes. Reason number 11 to make a will. You can nominate a guardian for your minor children. In most states, a minor child becomes an adult at the age of 18. You can nominate the person who should serve as their guardian to care for them until they reach age 18. Parents are the natural guardians for minor children. However, if they're unable to parent for any reason, a court will need to appoint a guardian to care for them until they turn 18. So who would you want to raise your children if you were unable? You'd clearly want someone who shares your values and priorities. As Christians, we want our children raised according to biblical standards and to be involved in a local church. You also should appoint someone who is able and willing. It's not good to appoint someone who refuses to serve because they're not willing or able to take on the responsibility. For that reason, I encourage you to ask someone before you nominate them in your will to see if they're able and willing to serve. Also, give some serious thought. Is it a good fit to send young children to a retirement village to live with the grandparents? May or may not be. Nominating a guardian for your minor children is one of the most important decisions a parent can make. Let me tell you what you don't want to happen. You don't want a judge to appoint someone that you don't approve of to raise your children. Worse, you don't want your family to fight with your spouse's family over guardianship of your children. Not the way you want to have them begin life after mom and dad are gone. Determining who should raise your children is one of the most difficult and the most important decisions parents need to make. If you have a will, you can make that decision, give it prayerful consideration, who would be the best for the children and to raise them as the guardian. The 12th reason to make a will, you can determine when your children receive their inheritance. As mentioned, minor children are considered adults at age 18 in most states. Without a will, your children will be given their entire inheritance on their 18th birthday. Now, do you think most 18-year-olds will wisely invest and save the money for future needs? What would you have done with thousands of dollars given to you on your 18th birthday? I shudder to think what I would have done with thousands of dollars on my 18th birthday. Most parents want their children to be a little older and a little wiser than age 18. So in your will, you can require that their inheritance be held until they reach an older age, such as 21, 25, or even 30 years of age. Meanwhile, the money can be used for the child's needs. It can be used to pay for their summer camp, braces, college tuition, or living expenses. Then whatever money is left over will be given to them outright when they reach the age you've determined. In our wills, my wife and I directed our kids would receive one half of their inheritance at age 21 and the other half at age 25. We figured they may waste the first half when they're 21, but they should be wiser at age 25 with the remaining half. You know your kids. You should set the age at which they receive their money. The next reason to make a will is that you get to select who will hold the money for your children. This could be the same person you nominate as guardian, but it does not have to be. Some people appoint one person to serve as guardian and another person to hold the money until the kids reach that age. Often, the person that's appointed as executor is also selected to hold the money for the kids. But you can appoint someone else if you choose. It could be a family member, a friend, or again, a trust department. They're responsible to invest the kids' money, spend it for their needs, and give what's left to the children when they reach the age you've determined. So you can nominate a guardian to raise your children, set the age in which they receive their inheritance, and select a person to hold the money for the kids until they reach that age. You have to do this in a will. These are very important decisions that could be very important for your children's well-being. Reason 14, you need to coordinate beneficiary designations. Here's a question. Assume you write a will that leaves everything to your 3 children equally, but you've only named one child as the beneficiary of your life insurance. When you die, who will receive the life insurance proceeds? The answer, the one child you listed on the beneficiary form. Well, what about the will that says to divide everything 3 ways? The will only governs property that's titled in your name only when you die. So how you title property is very important. Only property that's titled in your name alone will go under the will. Certain property can have beneficiary designation that doesn't pass under the will. For example, life insurance. When you take out the policy, they'll ask you to complete a beneficiary form. Who's your primary beneficiaries? And if they don't survive you, who are your secondary or contingent beneficiaries? Also, there's a way to title property to transfer on death. You'll see the initials TOD, or payable on death, for bank accounts. This means that it will transfer automatically upon your death to your designated beneficiaries. You can have this on vehicles, bank accounts, or any number type of property. It's important that your beneficiary designations match what you want in your will. If you want things to be divided among all 3 children, make sure you've listed all 3 as beneficiaries on your life insurance, your investments, and your retirement accounts. I want to take just a few moments and talk about retirement accounts. As you know, 401ks and traditional IRAs, not Roth IRAs, are funded with pre-tax money that grows tax-free until you take it out. Then, when you reach age 70 and a half, you must start withdrawing some of the money as your required minimum distribution and pay income tax on the amount you withdraw. However, there is one important exception to paying the tax. If you're 70 and a half or older and you direct your IRA administrator to send the required minimum distribution directly to a qualified charity like your church or ministry, you can avoid income taxes on that amount, and the ministry receives the gift tax-free. You can make a qualified IRA rollover up to $100,000 per year if you're over 70 and a half. Next, let's imagine that you do have a retirement account, but you've not withdrawn all the money before you die. At that point, your beneficiaries would pay income tax on the amounts that they withdraw. Again, with one major exception. Any amount that you leave to a qualified charity or ministry at your death will be transferred to them tax-free. For that reason, my wife and I changed the beneficiaries of our retirement account to include the Christian ministries we wanted to support. This will minimize tax and maximize the amount going to the Lord's work. We feel that's being a good steward. I encourage you to talk to your tax planner and the administrator of your retirement account about making a charitable gift from your IRA, both while you're alive or after you're gone. Important point is your will only governs that which is titled in your name only. You have other property that may transfer by beneficiary designations. Make sure that both of them say what you want. 15th reason to make a will is so you can minimize potential disagreements when you're gone. Without a will, there's a chance that your loved ones could disagree on who gets your possessions, who will serve as executor, who will serve as guardian of your children. If these decisions are specified in your will, you can avoid a lot of the confusion. In addition, you can include a no contest provision in your will that says that anyone who contests a will receives nothing. A no contest provision in your will encourages your beneficiaries to get along with each other and to accept the plan as stated in the will, or risk receiving nothing at all. So a will helps minimize potential disagreements. Another consideration, Homemade wills are problematic. Homemade wills often are not upheld in court because they do not meet the requirements for witnesses or some other legal formality. Homemade wills may be ambiguous and the beneficiaries disagree on its interpretation. I was involved in a case involving a homemade will that ended up in a court battle. The plan of distribution was not clear and it caused a major family fight. Speaking of homemade do-it-yourself wills, I do not recommend that you download a will from the internet. They're often one size fits all and try to comply with the laws of all 50 states. Does one size fit all? No. It will contain numerous provisions that don't apply to you, whether you're married or not married, have children, young children, no children, or include provisions from other states. And again, will cause confusion and opportunities for disagreement. Internet wills aren't free. For just a few dollars more, you can meet with an attorney privately and have a will drawn up for your specific situation that meets all of the legal requirements for your state. Professionally prepared wills are more difficult to contest and are not that much more expensive. Stop and think about it. We're talking about your entire life savings and taking care of your loved ones long after you're gone. Writing your will is not the place to cut corners and save money. You risk causing a major family fight. I will tell you, lawyers make more money in a court fight than they would charge you to prepare a simple will. Please hire a lawyer to write your will. Wills have several legal requirements that they're easy for an attorney to make. Let me assure you, it's much easier to make plans while you're alive compared to unraveling a mess after you're gone. Reason number 17 to make a will now, and that is, wills can be changed. Wills do not take effect until you die, so you can change them at any time. Do you have a will that's several years old? Read it. Does it still say what you want? If not, you can change it and update it. In fact, I encourage people to get out your will every few years and reread it. Have there been any life changes, birth, deaths, marriages? You can make changes. On occasion, laws change, but more often than not, there's been a change in your life situation, and you'll want to update your will. You should make a will that's right for your current situation. It's not that hard to update later if things change. Nowadays, wills are written on the computer, and it just takes moments to change beneficiaries or executors or any of the distribution plan. So make a will that's right for now, and if your situation changes, it's easier to make a new will later. The 18th reason to make a will: provide peace of mind. You've made plans. You provided for your loved ones. You provided for causes that are important to you. You can have a sense of accomplishment. Doing the right thing will bring you peace of mind. You're being responsible and made a plan of distribution. You can make a plan now so that your loved ones won't have to try to figure it out after you're gone. You have procrastinated and put it off long enough. It's time to get started. The hardest part is just getting started. Your planning not only gives you peace of mind, it'll also make it much less stressful for your loved ones later on. And to state the obvious, if you wait until you need a will, it's too late to make one. You should do it now while you can. And finally, the 19th reason to make a will: it's an opportunity to do something eternally significant. In your will, you have an opportunity to make a difference for eternity. Do you believe that God can use what you give to help other people? Many people decide to include a gift in their will to their church, or missionary, or other ministry. You can make your last gift your best gift. You give an offering every Sunday morning as an act of worship. In the same way, making a gift in your will can be done as an offering and a way to worship God after you're gone. When you die, you're often able to give your largest gift. While we're alive, we give from our available assets, but when you die, you leave everything behind, and you can make a substantial gift that can make a huge difference. In a will, you pass along your possessions and an opportunity for you to pass along your values. Some people include a Christian testimony in their wills. You can include a message about your faith and speak to your loved ones about your trust in the Lord. You know, you can learn a lot about a person's priorities by reading their will. I read an article about a lady who left $100 million to Poetry magazine. Do you think poetry was important to her? Do you think it was a priority? Let me ask, does your will reflect your priorities? Writing a will is an opportunity for you to do something eternally significant. I want to challenge you. Include a gift to your church, a missionary, or another ministry. Does your will accomplish God's will? Well, that's 19 reasons to write a will in 2019. Hopefully I've convinced you that making a will is very important, not as complicated as it sounds, and something you should do right away. I want to offer to help any way I can. I want to be a resource. I'd be glad to talk to you about the advantages of charitable giving. Send me an email and I'll send you a free estate planning worksheet. You can fill it out and take it to your attorney. If you do not have an attorney already, I'd be glad to help you try to find one in your area. You might start by asking if there are any attorneys in your church. Ask if they do wills or refer you to someone who can. Some Christian lawyers would be willing to prepare a will for a reduced fee if you tell them you're leaving a gift to your church. Also want to ask you to be looking for the Ozark Legacy Society. Ozark has been the beneficiary of several estate gifts throughout the years. And I can assure you that every dollar that's given will be used to train more workers. The Ozark Legacy Society will be an opportunity to recognize those who have included Ozark in their estate plans and encourage other people to leave a gift as well. So you have my contact information. Thank you for joining a webinar today, and please contact me if you have any questions or we can serve you in any way.